Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Art Is You podcast. I'm your host, Carly Scott, and today's episode is called Reprogramming Your Subconscious Mind. I feel like this is my most, that title just sounds so intense, I guess, but I'm really excited to talk about this topic. This is a topic I've wanted to discuss for a long time because for some reason I feel like people don't talk about the subconscious mind enough, and it's just a really big part of our experience as humans is like having a subconscious, and so I just don't think people talk about it enough. And being able to change the way that you think and the way you see yourself is such a cool ability that we have as humans, and I don't know why people wouldn't want to do that if they knew how. And at least for me, as soon as I learned that that was something that I could do for myself, I wanted to find out more about how to change the way I viewed myself and thought, because a lot of my thoughts weren't helpful. So we're going to talk about it today, and when you leave this episode, I want you to have tips and practical steps, things that I've done and things you can do to reprogram your subconscious, and just some personal life examples, I guess, and just hope and encouragement that you can change the way you think, the way you see yourself. If you struggle with insecurity and things like that, I know I do and have for a very long time, and this is a way that I've been able to shift a lot of those beliefs around. So let's talk about what the subconscious mind is first. Okay, it is pretty much your automatic beliefs, habits, and emotional patterns, your default programming that you don't even have to think about because your subconscious kind of holds that memory, I guess, and it's automatic. That default programming, that's honestly, the default is the way I describe it a lot of the time when I'm in a moment where I'm why do I keep doing this? And the feeling is it feels like this is my default response in these types of situations. How do I change that default? And something interesting I've learned about the subconscious mind is that you are pretty much, from the ages of 0, the time you're born, to 7 years old, you are a sponge. So essentially your brain is just absorbing and learning and creating your identity about the world from ages 0 to 7, because it makes sense, right? You just got here to planet Earth, and you're you're just absorbing and learning and taking it all in, trying to figure out and make sense of the world, and you're solidifying those beliefs and thoughts about just yourself and how the world works, which is kind of scary if you think about it, because ages 0 to 7, you're very young and you don't have a lot of control over your environment and the beliefs and things that you're essentially being exposed to, I guess. So that's why this work is so important and powerful, is because we didn't have control usually when we were 0 to 7 years old of what our default programming became. So it's a gift that there is a way to change it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I know it sucks that we have this default programming that a lot of the times we didn't ask for, and sometimes it's clear that some people have a better default program than others as far as maybe healthier, just a healthier foundation or default. And so for those of us that don't have a healthy default, it can be really frustrating, and it can really impact your relationships, how you view yourself, and how you show up in the world. I know for me, a lot of my default programming was based in fear, And so that means I was really scared to do like anything that I actually like cared about or wanted to do, because I had a lot of fear around that. And so I think it's very helpful, and it has been for me, that I've been able to like very slowly, this takes a long time. The subconscious mind took a while to form, as far as like, you know, the 0 to 7 years, you're a sponge absorbing and essentially creating that default programming. So it takes a while to create it. It also takes a little bit of time to change it. You have to be consistent. And yeah, so let's dive back into my notes, because I'm just starting to ramble on. Okay. So your old programming can have all sorts of beliefs, and the way that you find what your old programming is, or your default programming, is you look at your thoughts, your actions, your behaviors. What do you think about yourself? And sometimes this takes a little time to reflect on. We're not always as self-aware as we want to be, or hope that we are. And so sometimes we might think we're like kinder to ourselves than we actually are, or we think we love ourselves, but then we actually like treat ourselves pretty poorly, or think like really horrible thoughts about ourselves. And it can be like not fun to pay attention to like what your default programming is, because you might find that like, oh, like this inner, like my inner subconscious and like the things I want to do are actually like not good. Like I'm hurting myself, and I'm like hurting others by like acting out of this default space that feels so, it can feel out of your control sometimes, because you're like, wait, like this was ingrained in me so long ago, like how do I even start to change that? Like it overwhelms me a lot. And there were a lot of times throughout doing this work, and there still are times where I sometimes get into like a negative spiral of just like, will I ever change? Like, But the reality is I have been changing, and even if progress is slow, it is making a difference. So that's why I'm here to tell you guys that it works, and here's what I did. So essentially, okay, wait, before I dive into the tips, I do want to say that usually before you dive into the experience of trying to like reprogram your subconscious, you have like a moment where you first have to realize that you no longer want to be operating from your default, okay? And not everybody like gets to this point, honestly, ever in their lifetime. I think some people just live their whole life off of their default programming and don't really ever try to change it, or feel like they can change it. Nobody's ever taught them how or something. I don't know. But in order to even like embark on this journey, you have to first realize, okay, my default programming is actually having some pretty negative impacts, and I want to do what I can, what I have control over, to change that. And that's where I had to get. Like, I had to get to a place where I was like, okay, my default programming is like trying to like sabotage me is what it felt like. Kind of like I would want to do these amazing, like good, creative, fun, I don't even know, like good things, but then my default programming would hold me back or make me feel insecure. My default programming would make me just, operate out of like a place of like self-preservation at all times, but like in a really sometimes ineffective way. Like I was trying to preserve myself, but at the same time I was like hurting myself and like people around me. I don't even know. But that's the thing about your default programming, is it doesn't make a lot of sense most of the time. You're like, why do I keep doing this destructive thing? And that's where you can get to this like wake up moment where you're like, oh, something needs to change. Like, and I need to like take some action here to change this. Again, some people might never get to that moment, but my guess is if you're listening to this podcast, you might be intrigued by something like that, or you've already done that and you've worked to reprogram and change your own beliefs, and or you're interested in that and you have things that you're like, I would love to change, like, you know, the way I see myself, and I would love to be less insecure, or like learn how to love myself, actually, like not conditional love, but like unconditional love for yourself. And yeah, so if you struggle with those things and you're wanting to change them, this episode is for you. Okay, here's what I did to help me over the last like 4-ish years, I would say 4 or 5 years, something like that. These are things I've been doing, and again, this takes a long time and a lot of consistency to see results, but it's so worth it. Okay, first one is affirmations, and I know, like, I roll affirmations, whatever. Okay, here's the thing about affirmations. By themselves and without like the right, I guess like mindset behind it, they probably aren't that helpful. And sometimes they don't feel helpful while you're doing them. But what I've realized is my brain, your subconscious mind, okay, your subconscious, which is honestly like, I need to look up this actual percentage, but I think it's like something crazy, like 90% of like what your brain is operating from is like your subconscious, like a very large percent, way more than your conscious mind, okay? And so that's why it's so important, because that's like what most of your brain is doing. So your brain is listening, your subconscious mind is listening. Your conscious mind is, you know, what you're consciously aware of and like actually paying attention to, making conscious decisions about. And then your subconscious is doing its thing, right? And it's always there, it's always listening, it's always paying attention to what's happening, because it can't help itself. It's just, that's just what it does. It just is there. I'm so bad at describing things sometimes. Okay, so if your brain's always listening, then when you do these affirmations, you guys, your brain, your subconscious, the one that's, you know, your conscious might be a little bit like eye-rolly about it, like I'm so beautiful, and you're like, I don't feel beautiful, I'm ugly, like I don't even know. But your subconscious mind is listening to you say those affirmations, and the more you do them and the more you're consistent with them, the more your subconscious starts to believe and have that be the new default belief about yourself. And even if you have a little bit of an attitude about it, like, you know, you're saying all these positive things and affirmations about yourself, and there's a part of you that doesn't quite believe it yet. First of all, you can start with something a little less extreme. If you don't want to like leap to like all of these, like, you know, I love myself and I'm beautiful and I'm smart and strong and creative and whatever your affirmations are, okay? If you can't leap there, start with something that feels a little easier for you to grasp. Like maybe you believe you're kind, or like you're friendly, I don't know. Start with something that you can kind of hold on to, and then challenge yourself to go push a little further. And even if it feels weird and you feel like you don't really believe it, just try to like keep showing up for it. Maybe I would say you got to give it a few weeks, probably at least, to see if you can find that connection with yourself, especially if you're doing them in the mirror, because I felt so disconnected from myself in that way for a long time, as far as like speaking kindly to myself and looking at myself in the mirror and like believing good things about myself. Like, I know that sounds kind of like sad and whatever, but like I think a lot of people do struggle with that at points in their life. And I know, yeah, it was really hard for me to like make that connection with myself and like say those affirmations and say those positive things about myself. But you have to remember like why you're doing it, and the fact that like your default is not actually serving you in any way, and having those negative thoughts about yourself when you look in the mirror and you don't believe those good things about yourself, it's actually not serving you at all, and it actually affects how you show up and treat other people too, and the way you believe about other people. The way you believe about yourself actually does really show up in how you view other people. And I mean, it makes sense, like it's connected, like the way, again, it's part of your subconscious too. It's like rewiring the way you think about yourself helps you to like notice the good in others because you see the good in yourself. And yeah, it's really helpful. Okay, so that's just affirmations, and affirmations by themselves are beautiful, but I think that you really need to pair the affirmations with the other things, because again, it's just one tiny thing to do for your subconscious. It would take a lot of work and a lot of affirmations if that's the only thing you were doing to try to like improve your life, I think. But I don't know, they're powerful, so they're helpful. You know, sometimes one little change can set off like a domino effect of change in your life. So honestly, any one of these that you want to try and like latch onto, go for it. Okay, next one is inner child work, which you guys have heard me talk about a good amount. My like inner child and stuff like that. But it's essentially getting to know the child version of yourself and like letting them get to know the adult version of you, creating a relationship with your inner child, like yourself as a child. You're the same person, but you've changed a lot, and you were in a different environment probably when you were a kid, and you might have had certain needs that were never met, and adult you has the ability to kind of like help heal inner child you, because you have this like new perspective on the world now that you're an adult. Your brain is more developed, you know, you get it. When you were a kid, you're like, what's going on? And now you're like, oh, like I understand why you were feeling that way. Like you know, you were going through some stuff, and you can kind of like, yeah, have that compassion for your inner child. Remember, subconscious mind is like being developed from ages 0 to 7. So maybe like focus on that time in your life, like when you were a young kid. What were you like? What was going on? Like, what were you absorbing, and what beliefs were you forming about yourself and the world during those ages? And how can you kind of like connect with that version of you and maybe share some of the wisdom like you've acquired with them? And also maybe like let them know like we made it out okay, we're safe, like that kind of thing. Again, that could be like a whole episode by itself. But okay, next one is journaling to uncover root beliefs. So I think that talking and journaling, like I know for me, like I've talked a lot about these things to like help get to the root beliefs, but journaling, I've journaled to a lot, and I've found, I guess, different journal prompts that will help me explore what beliefs I had, like what those core beliefs are. And some of the journal prompts I've done kind of will get at like, you know, do you have any first memories around, you know, a time where someone really hurt you, or where, you know, like trying to get back to like, okay, if I have this belief that I'm not good enough, you're really trying to like go way back to where that originally came from. And even if you can't pinpoint the exact moment, you might remember a few specific memories that maybe helped solidify that belief of like, I'm not good enough, or whatever it is. And so, and there can be a lot of these beliefs, you guys. Like there could be, I'm not good enough, and there could be like, I'm, like for me, something that I didn't totally realize was like, I have these default beliefs of like, I'm not smart enough, and being able to like figure out where those beliefs stemmed from, and then yeah, I guess starting to like reprogram myself to believe something different and to see that differently. It really helps you guys. It's a really helpful process because even if you didn't see it then, you can kind of like uncover it now and really help your brain like make that connection for your past self, your child self, I guess. Okay, next one is meditation and visualization. This is huge for reprogramming your subconscious, you guys. Okay, so these go hand in hand because while you're meditating, you can visualize at the same time. And you could just visualize, but that's pretty much meditation. So I like to do guided meditations as well that will help me visualize and just like, yeah, guide me through like the breathing and everything. Sometimes affirmations too, like guided meditations will include affirmations in them. And if you want to listen to like a nighttime meditation, sometimes they're called like a sleep hypnosis too on like Spotify. There's like endless like free options, but you're essentially listening while you sleep to this like relaxing guided experience that is helping you rewire your subconscious. Like while you're sleeping, your subconscious is still listening. And so yeah, that's one way that you can like help the process because repetition is so important. It's an easy way to just like have more affirmations happening at nighttime or just practicing breathing and having these honestly kind thoughts about yourself, because that's what guided meditations really help me do, is like remember how I should be speaking to myself and how I need to view myself, because I was not always given like a good picture of how to view myself. And so I have to give myself that all the time to like remind myself. And if you need that too, I like swear nighttime meditations are so nice for that, especially if you get anxious at night like me or have a hard time falling asleep because your brain just like won't turn off. It can really help you to relax faster. Man, I wish I could do this by myself, and I'm trying to learn and practice how to meditate better on my own, but having a guided experience has really helped me. Okay, the next one is super important. Choosing different thoughts and actions in the moment. This is where the work starts to really show up in your life, because you're doing all this work that feels a little bit like, okay, what am I doing? These are weird affirmations in the mirror. I'm like listening to this meditation. I'm like, I'm journaling about my feelings and like my inner child. And you're like, okay, is this actually gonna like help me change? So when you have moments where you feel your insecurity or your inner child, your fear, whatever is triggered, and you feel that default response coming up where it's like you want to shut down or you want to run away or you want to fight or whatever it is, it's like your default in that moment, and you're able to like stop and catch yourself almost and be like, wait, that's my default programming, and I actually think I want to stay present for this right now. And how do I want to show up for it? Adult self, like not default programming, but like, what do I want my new programming to be? Like, who do I want to be in this moment? Like, who have I been saying in my affirmations that I am? And like, that's who I want to be. And so when you're able to have those first few moments of like noticing and then choosing something different than what your default was, you'll be like, oh my gosh, like it worked. It worked. But then there's also moments where it doesn't work and you don't even catch yourself and you just go straight to default, and then you realize after the fact and you're like, oh my gosh, like I did it again, and you're so discouraged. So it's an emotional roller coaster for me at least, but it's working. Like those little moments show you that it's working, because before you were just pure default reprogramming, and you never really like were able to be like, oh, that's my old programming kicking in, like I'm trying to change. And you know what you're changing towards because you've been doing the journaling and you've been doing the affirmations. You specifically know what you're becoming and like who you're trying to be. And so you were clear with yourself, and then again being consistent, like continuing to feed your subconscious those new beliefs. Then those moments where it shows up, it means it is working. Even if it doesn't, like, it's not just gonna flip and be like, now I'm only this like new version. It's like, no, it's a slow process of catching yourself in that default programming, making a different choice, and again, forgetting a lot of the time because you're not perfect and this is slow work. And so, yeah, but that's how the change happens, in those little moments. It's not instant, unfortunately. Like, I'm still very much in the thick of this process of like just changing old beliefs and changing the way I show up in the world. And yeah, it's so normal for fear to come up when you're trying to like to rewire your brain that was like literally formed when you were just a little kid, and it's scary to change how you see the world. And even like for a lot of people, I know for me, just admitting that like you're wrong, in the sense that like, oh, like I was wrong about that belief I had. Like I was just wrong about it. Like it's okay to be wrong, and sometimes it's good to be wrong, especially if you thought you were right about something that was like actually really horrible, but then it turns out you were wrong about it, and you're like, wait, that horrible thing isn't actually real. Okay, cool. Cool. That's great, actually. So it's okay to be wrong sometimes. Okay, that's pretty much all of like the main points I wanted to hit on for things you can do. I'll just like recap super fast. Affirmations, inner child work, journaling to uncover root beliefs, meditation or visualization. Okay, 5. I have this like microphone, so it's hard. Choosing different thoughts, actions in the moment. And then, okay, the last one is repetition and consistency, which we touched on a lot. But that's really important, that you just keep doing it daily if you can. Different things. Not like, you don't have to journal daily, but like, you could. I don't. Okay, next one. Okay. So, I feel like I have changed so many beliefs, but there just are like endless beliefs and thoughts and things in our mind. And so it's like I'm constantly uncovering new beliefs. I'm like, I didn't even know I had that belief. Like, oh, like I gotta work on that one now. And it's just an endless process. And so it's cool because you can look back and be like, whoa, I've come so far. But also like the work is never done. And so don't feel discouraged by that. Like, I have to be like this finished product. Like, no, you don't, because we're just not finished. It's okay to be like in the process, in the journey, you know? Yeah, I feel like I just want you to feel encouraged after listening to this, that it is possible to change the way you see yourself, the way you see the world, the way you believe. Like, all of that is possible to change. And I hope that I can be an example of somebody that has changed my beliefs and the way I show up in the world, and can give hope to people who want to change and feel like they're so far away from it. Like, I'm here to tell you, I've felt that way, and there's hope. It's a process. I'm here. I hope that you keep tuning into this podcast if you're on this journey in your own life, because it's important to have encouragement and people who are going through the same thing, to kind of like, walk with you along that path. So I'm watching like a couple crows grabbing this stick. Anyways, this was a little longer today. I'm like back to a little bit of a longer episode. Look at me. I will talk to you guys next week. I love you. Bye.